Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Coffee with Kate. I am super excited to have the Executive Director for Bethany Christian Adoption Services, Mrs. Bunmi Akinkwuwo. Bunmi, thank you and welcome to Coffee with Kate.
Thank you so much, Dr. Heaven, for having me.
Yes, this is a real pleasure. Now, I got to say, this is called, the remix? We're remixing it. You already did this episode before, but due to some technical difficulties, we ended up having to redo it. So this is great, because as they say on a cartoon, the second time is twice as nice, right?
Exactly. Yes. Always a pleasure to be with you. So absolutely.
Thank you so much. And I tell you, we're also going to have Mrs. Sarah Crutcher, who is the author of Heart Picked, and she's going to be joining us on the broadcast a little bit later. And Sarah is an adoptee, and she has talked about an adoption tale, which I think may mirror her experience as a child that was adopted. And I think she'll be talking about that experience. So I'm really, really excited about talking about adoption. This is a very important pathway that many families with infertility many people with infertility use to build and grow their families. And so it's a real privilege to have you connected. Okay, right now, try again. We went out of Instagram for a second there, but I think we are back. So hopefully everything is going fine. And I am waiting on Sarah, and I don't see Sarah. So we're going to continue to move forward.
Okay.
So this is good. I got this one. There we go. All right. So Bunmi, tell me a little bit about what you do. Tell me a little bit about adoption, because I know people have ideas about what adoption is, what it's not. So you're the professional. You are kind of the industry person who is responsible for evaluating families. And let's be clear, there is a bit of evaluation that has to take place to see if you are a good fit to build their families through adoption. So tell me a little bit about what that looks like. How does it happen?
Okay. So usually a family comes to us and says, we would like to grow our family through adoption. And a lot of times people choose to adopt for many reasons. Sometimes it might be because of infertility. Sometimes it's because maybe they've heard about adoption, or they have family members whose heart lives were touched by adoption. And so they also want to be a part of the adoption story and really make a forever impact on the life of a child. So lots of different reasons bring families to come to decide that they want to adopt. So at Bethany, what we do is we try to make the process very streamlined. Bethany is a national and international organization. So we have been working in the adoption arena for about 75 years. In Maryland, we've been here for about 38 years. Yeah. So,
how many children, Bethany? Because you can adopt more than just babies, right?
Absolutely. And I love that you said that. Absolutely. We've placed quite a number. I don't have that exact number in front of me, but it has been a lot of children who found forever families through our different adoption programs. So one thing.
That just speaks to my heart. Forever families, the family that you were supposed to have. And I think that we have Miss Sarah Crutcher, and she's joining in right now. So we've got again author Sarah Crutcher, who is the author of Heart Picked, Elizabeth's Adoption Tale. We've got Bunmi Akinkwuwo, who is the Executive Director for Bethany Christian Adoption Services. And then we have me, Dr. Camille Hammond, CEO of the Kate Foundation. And so for all of you all who are out in the world watching us today on both Instagram and on Facebook, I welcome you to Coffee with Kate, where we're going to have a conversation, not a presentation. And these guests are here with us, with you, as you sip your tea on your lunch break or eat your chips and guac. But we really want to talk to you about issues that impact families with infertility. And as most of you all know, adoption is a fantastic option and a great way to build your family. So welcome to our very esteemed guests. I did not mean to cut you off, Bumi. So you were sharing about the fact that Bethany Christian Adoption Services has been in the adoption field, serving families for the past 75 years, and that there was a word that you used to describe
forever families.
Yes, yes, I love that. Forever families. So, okay, so what's going on? All right, so if you would continue to share a little bit about the work that Bethany does, and also quickly talk about what's required. So if a family wanted to adopt, what are some things that they would have to have in place before that would be possible?
Okay, sounds good. And so one thing I always like to say is there's lots of, even with adoption, there's so many opportunities. With Bethany, so my office is Bethany, Maryland, Washington, D.C., so we kind of cover that area. A couple of things is, so we have 3 different adoption programs. We have our infant adoption, which is usually placing infants, or sometimes maybe a parent has parented for a few years and they're saying, you know what, at this time, I just really feel like I have some challenges and I want to find a forever family for my child so that they don't have to go into the foster care system. So it's a very parent-led process. So often we'll work with that parent to find a family, and we really let the parents take the lead role. So most times they are the ones who are selecting the adoptive family and also telling us what kind of relationship they want. Do they want it more open or do they want a more closed adoption? So that's our domestic infant adoption program. We also have an international adoption program where families work with Bethany, and we are placing children from 5 of the countries that we currently have working with. Those countries right now are Colombia in South America, South Africa in Africa. We have Albania in Europe, and then we are also working with South Korea and China. So those are our 5 countries where families can, who are interested in maybe doing an international adoption, we can place children with families in Maryland and DC from those countries. And then there's also, which is probably one of the ones that's really close to my heart, it's foster care adoption, where families can adopt children right here in the United States who are in foster care who need forever families. Now, the stats with that is there are 400,000 children in the US on any given day in foster care, but 100,000 of them are ready to be adopted. They just need a family to say yes. And so when a family comes to us and they don't want to foster, they want to adopt. They know they don't want to do it temporarily. They know they want to be forever families. They can come to us and we can partner with them, and we're able to look at all that 100,000 kids there. We can look at that pool of kids to see what child is matched with this family. And what's great is we're able to place children from all over the US with families right here in Maryland, DC. So that's another fantastic way that families can grow their families through adoption.
That's great. Thank you so much. Sarah, can you tell me a little bit about your book and how your book support families, and also, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your adoption story?
Yes, of course. So my book, I have it handy. It's Heart Picked, Elizabeth's Adoption Tale. And I wrote the book because I just wanted to have a good resource for families to really just talk openly about adoption. It's such a beautiful thing, whether you adopt from a private organization or from the foster care system. And, you know, like what was just mentioned, there's so many children out there that are just looking for a loving home. So I was just really fortunate to, I was adopted as an infant at 6 weeks. And my experience was really amazing. I'm an only child, so my parents, they just adopted me. And I think in the beginning, you know, you want to just be honest with your child about everything that's going on. And, the one thing that I always stress when I talk to parents is to don't wait, because that can cause a lot of issues and different problems. So just talk to them as early as you want to, as early as you can, and just keep the conversation going. So my parents told me when I was around 5 years old, and we just kept the conversation going. We would go out to dinner every year we didn't really have a name for the date that it was finalized, but I just kind of looked forward to having 2 birthdays.
And I know some people nowadays, because I have a number of friends who have adopted, some of them may refer to that as the gotcha day.
Yep. Yeah.
Is that a day that you've heard of? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
But I don't know. I guess there are other ways that people refer to it. Is that right?
I think there are. I know, this was, many, many, many years ago. We haven't, we don't really do that anymore. But when I was younger, we did. But I don't think there was a term yet that was kind of coined. But I really like Gotcha Day. I think that's a cute phrase. I have a friend, and she has 2 children that they were foster children, and she has adopted both of them. And so she calls it Gotcha Day. So I think it's a cute name.
Awesome. Okay, well, so right now we've got about 7 people logged in. Guys, I want to just remind everyone, for those of you who are on Instagram and on Facebook, please send in your questions. We've got 2 experts. One is an adoptee herself who's written a book, again, Heart-Picked, Elizabeth's Adoption Tale. And she'll tell you a little bit more about that as we continue. And then we have Mrs. Bumi Akinkwuo, who is the executive director for Bethany Christian Adoption Services for both Maryland, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. And, these are people who are in this field, both professionally and also have given their time, treasure, and talent to serving families. So send in your questions. There's no question that's a bad question. There's no question that's a dumb question. There's no question that is inappropriate other than the question that you don't ask. So please send in your questions. So Bumi, I do have a quick question for you. What's the number one question that people ask, or number one concern that people have when they come to see you and they're thinking about adoption? What's the first thing that people usually have on their mind? And can you quickly tell us what the question is and what the answer is?
Okay. I would say that the first question families have is, what program is right for me? Because Bethany has the foster care adoption, the infant adoption, the international. A lot of times they're thinking, I'm not sure. I know I want to adopt. I'm not sure which is the right one for me. And so then we sit and we just talk about it. Because again, every adoption option is wonderful. But we wanted to make sure it's a fit for you and your family. So for some families, we ask, what is important to you? For some families, they already have children and they want to maintain birth order. And so then we're talking about looking at the different, usually if you're adopting from foster care, usually the children are a little bit older. So if you want to maintain birth order, then maybe maybe then you want to look at maybe infant adoption or international, where the kids may be a little bit younger. So usually it's kind of what program's the right fit for me. And what we do is we have an adoption social worker who'll sit with you and just really talk through the process, what all the different programs look like, some of the advantages of maybe doing an infant adoption, or maybe what we just whatever is a better fit for you is what we talk about. So that's probably the number one question.
So we just got a question from Aaron Scott on Facebook who says, we call our day Family Day. So yay, that's beautiful. So, okay, that's fantastic. So when you come in, what's a good fit? And then they would kind of help guide you to that program. Sarah, tell me a little bit about your experience. So I know that you shared that your parents told you when you were very young about growing up adopted, and I got to tell you, I've read the book, Heart-Picked. I love the book. It's a fantastic resource because it touches on so many issues. I think that sometimes children and families go through, like, I don't necessarily look like my birth parents. If kids say things at school, how do I react to that? So can you tell me a little bit about, if the book was not written kind of from an autobiographical perspective, as a professional working in this industry who does support families, and I know that you're very involved with the support side of adoption also professionally, what are some of the ways that families can address those differences? And I'm dealing specifically with families that may look different. Even if you have a family that's all from the same racial, ethnic background, you could have two parents that kind of, and at least from the picture, actually, it's think about, you have two parents who are have a little bit more melanin. They're a little darker complected than the child. They may have different hair texture. What are some ways that you have seen this addressed in families?
So I think the main thing with adoption and in general is just to approach it from a very loving perspective, approach it from a perspective that is normal, that this, that adoption is not, it's not necessarily doesn't have to be a unique type thing. It is, it is very common. And I stress in the book that just because your family might not look alike does not mean that you're not a family. We have in this day and age, there's so many different blended families, and families come in all types of different shapes. So I think what's the main thing is just to talk about it from a perspective of love and just, be honest and be open about everything. And then from there, just talk about it. Just reassure the child that they are loved and how they came into the family. And just, it's not nothing about it is bad. It's a beautiful thing. And I think regardless of what the birth family might be like, the birth parents, or however the situation may be, it turned into a wonderful blessing that really should be celebrated, in my opinion. So I think just being really positive about it, because it's a beautiful thing. You can have a parent that looks different from the child. You can have siblings that look different. You can have, there's so many different ways that families are made up now. So I would say just talk about it. And just, if you have any questions or concerns, talk freely and talk open about it. And don't be afraid to say that, we look different, and that's okay. Being different is cool. Being different is amazing. And just come from it from a loving perspective, I think is just really the best.
Absolutely. Well, so Bumi, some questions that we have received in, because we have heard, you hear different things from people, both who have adopted and from adoptees. And I'm personally a part of a lot of adoption support groups, at least on social media. So I see kind of the different types of feedback coming in. What are some of the honest struggles that a family who chooses to adopt may encounter? And Sarah, maybe you could talk about that as well. And then what are some of the supports available to help that family? Because I think, we posted the question on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and then we posted it again this weekend. Have you ever considered adoption? Why or why not? And there were a number of people that actually responded, and some said, well, I want to adopt after I have children, the old-fashioned way. And some, frankly, said they were afraid of the child rejecting them in their life. And so let's talk about that. And guys, I got a lot of people who have tuned in online. Please send in your questions, because we want to talk about these things so that we can address the issues and give you all the information that you need to make good, informed decisions about family building. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Either one.
Great. That's a great question. I think one of the most beautiful things about adoption is every adoption is different. So even if a family adopts, has gone through the adoption process once and they come back again the second time, the experience could be completely different, because every child is so different. Every child's circumstances and background is so different. So I think one of the biggest things about adoption is when families come in, I hear them, the families who say we are afraid, because it's really a journey of unknowns. You really don't know what's going to happen. And so really encouraging families to go into adoption with their arms and their hearts wide open, because you might think things are going to go one way and you plan for it to go one way, and it completely changes. And I say that in the sense that you might think that we've had families come in and say, I want to adopt an infant, and then they go on our international waiting children's list, and they fall in love with a child with special needs from a different country, and they just know that this is their child. And so even though they came in thinking this is the way I'm going to go, just their hearts are turned in a different direction. And so kind of when you think about adoption, it's really for families, there's really a letting go that has to happen. Letting go of what your expectations are, letting go of what maybe you expect your child's going to look like, or letting go of just what the journey is going to be. really just being open and embracing a journey with a child, knowing that the child who comes to you is the child that you are meant to raise. I think something like that really helps that perspective. So when you kind of know that going in, then you're able to enjoy the journey because you're not shocked, because we all in the back of our minds have a way we think things are going to go. And what really trips us up is when things don't go that way.
Yeah.
That's great. Sarah, what do you think?
Well, I always like to say this, and I just really want to stress this for, any parents that are watching that either have adopted or thinking about it. A lot of times parents, I think they have a fear that the child is going to grow up and then they're going to want to find their family and they're going to leave. And that's really not how it would go. I had a closed adoption. I was adopted out of North Carolina, and I'm not sure if they still are, but at the time they were a closed adoption state. So I have no information about my birth parents. But that doesn't mean that I don't wonder and, maybe one day I can find who they are. And that in no way would take away from the amazing job that my parents do every day as my parents, or the love that I have for them. But it's just natural to want to know who you are. So, I know a lot of parents, and it's like it really can become a problem if they know that the child is interested in seeking their birth family. And I just think that's just a natural part of how the process works. And it's okay. It's okay. Even if they find the family, if they even have formed some sort of relationship, that in no way is going to take away from the parents that they've had their entire lives. So I always like to stress that, because that seems to come up a lot as I talk to more adoptees that are older and they're going through that process. And it's really hard to manage how their parents feel and how they feel. And it really doesn't have to be an issue. It's okay. It's okay to have, both situations.
That's a really honest and beautiful response. But I know that sometimes birth parents do feel a little threatened by that question and concerned. And I'm thinking, I know that many states were closed in the past, and many states have moved to almost a universal open adoption, probably for that reason. Boomy, is that kind of why that has evolved over time?
I think it was beautiful what Sarah said, because it's very natural for kids to think, where did I come from? Who do I look like? Because one of the things we find is that kids, they grow up hearing from their peers, oh, you look like your dad, or you do that just like your grandmother, and they don't get that. And so that natural curiosity is there. We've moved towards it. Actually, the research shows that, openness is a great thing for the adoption triad, and the triad is the adoptee, the birth family, and the adoptive family. And that for that triad, openness is actually the best thing, especially for that adoptee. And so we really encourage families as they go into the adoption process to consider openness. The other thing that we see is a lot of birth parents, and adoption is a very loving decision. We say that from the birth parent's perspective, adoption is a brave act of love. For a birth parent to say, I want to give my child the best, and I may not, because of what's going on, be able to do that in this moment. And so we really want to honor them and honor that their decision, this act of love. And so it's really great when we encourage families as we train them and say, hey, consider openness, because that gives a child a sense of knowing where they came from. And like Sarah said, it doesn't have to threaten your role as the daily parent. I love that your book is called Heart Pick, because a lot of times adoptive families talk about, you have a belly mommy and I'm your heart mommy. Mm-hmm. And so that's a really great way to really talk about that, so you have two mommies and you came out, I didn't carry you in my belly, but I carried you in my heart, and you are picked by my heart. And when we talk about it from a place of normalcy, especially like Sarah's parents did, when we start talking about that when the children are young, it becomes their normal. And that's what they know. It's when we wait and then we have it introduced to a child on the playground. Because I tell people, in this day and age of social media, there really are no secrets.
No.
So, the last thing you want is for your neighbor to tell your child you're adopted. And then they come home and that's the first time they hear it. They should hear that from you. because then they know they can trust you. What happens is if they find out from somebody else, trust is lost, and then that adoption or that relationship begins to splinter.
Well, we've had a couple that have shared, and I'm going to read those off. One from Erin Scott. Our daughter's birth mother shared one of the reasons she chose us was because we seemed, quote unquote, so normal on our website and in the materials we sent to her by the agency. LOL. My partner and I were intentional about presenting ourselves and our family in a realistic manner when we were waiting to be chose. And either of the professionals speak to the importance of being real and not having to be the quote unquote perfect family in order to be chosen. And thank you so much for the work that you do for adoptive and birth families. So, Sarah, maybe we can get you to chime in on the importance of representing yourself as you are and maybe not the perfect way you would want to be in that process.
Well, I think we all know that no one is perfect. No family is perfect. No child is perfect. No, the perfect is not, that doesn't exist. And I think everyone's idea of parenthood and how they parent is different. Everyone's idea of marriage is different, or whatever your household may be. And I think it is important to just show who you are, especially when you're going through the process. Like I've said before, it's a loving process. If you're in it for love and to have a child to love and to be loved in return, then be your authentic self, show who you are, and just always go from a place of love. I don't think there's any need to, sugarcoat things or to act, differently than what you are. Because most of the time, at some point, the real will come out. So it's a lot easier just to be who you are and be who you are as a family and however the child is going to come into your life. And then let whoever is, kind of the deciding factor, let them make those decisions. But definitely be who you are.
Yeah.
Be 100% who you are.
Absolutely. Just to chime in, a lot of times I think of on the infant adoption side where we're encouraging birth parents to select. That's what they're looking for, real people. So the more authentic you are, that resonates with birth parents. And we've had birth parents pick for so many reasons. Sometimes maybe it's a picture. I remember one birth parent said they went to an ugly sweater party. They seemed like fun people. And that was the reason why they picked this family. Another time they said, oh, they have cats. I grew up with cats. And so it's the little nuances. It's never the things that you think. So absolutely be your authentic self, because it might be that one thing that makes you quirky that actually makes that birth parent feel like they connect with you and they want you to be the person that raises their child.
Well, we started a few minutes late, and unfortunately, we're going to have to finish. We're already 9 minutes over our time threshold, but I wanted to just give you both an opportunity if you have any final thoughts. And I want to just stress that this is Ms. Bunmi Akinkwuo, who is the Executive Director for Bethany Christian Adoption Services, and they're based in Maryland. And also Ms. Sarah Crutcher, the author of Heart-Picked, Elizabeth's Adoption Tale, which is, I believe, available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and anywhere great books are sold. So before I get you guys to comment, I did want to share one last comment from Kennedy's Angels on Instagram. My family has adopted 2 girls that do not look like us and have been teased because of it. We have an open adoption to make sure they and their biological family, that they know their biological family and about their culture. So I think that just reaffirms what you guys were saying about the importance of teaching your kids in love, but telling them early before they get that information on the playground or at the family reunion, because there's always that one drunk uncle that much and starts saying stuff. Maybe not in the family. I'm just speaking too much from personal experience. But ladies, if you had any last parting words to share with our guests, and thank you all for chiming in and having lunch with us. It looks like we've had a real robust group, both on Facebook and Instagram, who've chimed in today. What are your parting words? If
you feel that you want to be a forever family to a child, come talk to us. Don't be afraid. Just come and talk to us. We'll just sit and we'll figure it out together. This is what we love to do. This is my heart and my team's heart. We just love hearing and meeting families who've adopted, who want to adopt, who are thinking about it. And don't be afraid. Just come talk to us and we'll help you.
Amen. And then Sarah, last word.
Yes, I think I would just say, if you want to start a family or if you want to expand your family, there's so many children, whatever the age. If you feel more comfortable with an infant or an 11-year-old or an 18-year or 17-year-old, there's so many children. And I think as humans, we have so much love to give. And if you have any inkling or any passion to expand your family, really, really think about adoption. It is really a beautiful blessing on both sides. And I would just really encourage people, just talk about it, reach out to people, get some more information, ask questions. If you have any fears or if you've heard myths, just ask questions and talk to people and just get a little bit more familiar. And I think a lot of times you'll find that it's a great journey to go on.
Amazing, outstanding. Thank you guys so much. And before we finish, just a little note, the Cade Foundation does provide grants for fertility treatment and adoption for families with infertility, and these grants can cover up to $10,000 in treatment or service costs. And so if you have any questions or you're in need of financial support, please visit us online at cadefoundation.org/grants with an S at the end. And grant applications are due by July 1st. So if you're thinking about applying, you need to get on it because you've got a couple of weeks, you got time, but not a lot. Before we go, we ask all of our guests, because we are meeting during lunch hour, and this is certainly just a conversation. So what's in your mug?
I'm just having water today. I'm trying to stay hydrated, so drinking water today.
That's good. Hydration is important. Hydration Nation. And you, Sarah?
Well, I'm having a late first cup of coffee, so I have coffee in here, and I'm repping my University Hampton.
The real HU, right? Wait.
Yes.
Howard listening to that. You guys are also the real. Everybody's real. So, and I'm Ghost Fighters, University of Richmond, yay. Boomy, where'd you go? So we're
Salisbury University on the Eastern Shore. Okay. Go Seagulls.
So we're all sharing our undergraduate university. Thank you guys for joining us. We hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time. Ladies, if you mind, I'm going to close this out and talk to you in a minute.
Thank you.
Thank you.